Hey, Mr. Putin, we're exceptional. You don't like it, lump it. Good evening. Welcome to State of Mind. I am Dan Yorke. Tonight's guest, Dawson Hodgson. He is a state senator from North Kingstown. He is one of the lead voices to say, come on, man, we're not doing a good enough job on investigating 38 studios, the failed Curt Schilling $75 million debacle. There was a House Oversight Committee hearing on that last night. We'll get into that in part in our rundown and with our guest, Senator Hodgson. Let's take a look at the rundown for the rest of our commentary here this evening. Unbelievable. This is either a punch in our nose that we're going to just get a napkin for, or we're going to punch back. But when Vladimir Putin tells us how to behave, I think we got a little bit of an issue. There's some pessimism on the pension numbers, meaning the rate of return has been questioned. We'll figure out what that means. Ellen Fung, the mayor of Cranston, has an advisory group. Actually, I proffered this to you last night and then blew by it, but I'm not blown by it tonight. I got something to say about it, promise. What else do we have for this evening? These Democrats who are thinking about who can be the party chairman have so many incestuous problems they can't get outside the concept of conflict of interest. The 38 Studios Oversight Panel goes through the paperwork, and hey, the Paw Sox are this close to a cup, a championship. Let's get going. All right, on a Thursday evening, let's talk about Vladimir Putin for a second here. Did you see what he has to say about America? In an op-ed in the New York Times, Mr. Putin tells us the following. This is incredible. Here's your New York Times headline. He says, my working and personal relationship with President Obama is marked by growing trust. I appreciate this. I carefully studied his address to the nation on Tuesday. I'll get to that quote in a second. And I would rather disagree with the case he made on exceptionalism, stating that the United States policy is what makes America different. It's what makes us exceptional. It's extremely dangerous to encourage people to see themselves as exceptional, whatever the motivation. There are big countries and small countries, rich and poor, those with long democratic traditions and those still finding their way to democracy. Their policies differ too. We're all different, but when we ask for the Lord's blessings, we must not forget that we are all created equal. You know, I got to tell you, this is quite the move by Vladimir Putin. First of all, he's trying to level America as a partner with everybody else. Great, but guess what? All our partners are not as key as us. All of our relationships are not balanced, and our weight in the world is still significant. That's why we're called a superpower. Now, I'm disappointed that the president hasn't said a doggone thing back yet. No, we don't need a rhetorical war in the middle of all the Syrian stuff, but you know what? In some ways, we need a rhetorical war in the middle of all the Syrian stuff. All that data about the chemicals and the weapons and how we're going to move them, how we're going to find them, we'll save that for another night. We've been on that most nights here. But the bottom line here is Putin has more or less tested our mettle. Is he going to get us aggravated? Are we going to look at ourselves and say, you know what, we've been fighting in our dugout a long time, and perhaps we're not too excited about the way the president is led on this matter and others, but you can't come into our dugout and tell us how we are or whether or not we're exceptional. In fact, you know, even though internally we've got to work some things out, a caller to my radio show on WPRI from noon to 3 earlier today kind of put it really well. This was Joe from Cranston. Listen to this.
Now, Mr. Putin's confusing our politicians with the American people. See, the American people don't elect the best and the brightest, because the best and the brightest are running corporations and employing people. We got the second-rate guys running our policies. And right now we're the victim of an inept government with an inept foreign policy and a stalemated Congress who can't get out of its own way. So we look inferior to the rest of the world. But Mr. Putin, don't ever challenge the American people one-on-one. He'll lose every time. That's American exceptionalism.
Amen, brother. We're exceptional. Got it, Vladimir? We're exceptional. All right. Pessimism on the pension numbers. Short headline and quick discussion on this. The Journal reports out today the audit suggests state lower expectations on return. Now, this is an audit that covers the audit inside the Treasury, if you can follow that. But the internal numbers show that the 7.5% rate of return that the state pension program needs for all the numbers to jive may be too high. It used to be 8.25. Now it's 7.5. it needs to be lower. I said it needed to be lower, and I didn't have to do the, I'm not trained, I didn't run the numbers. You got to figure that out based on the markets. Here's what happens when the rate goes down. When the rate goes down, the rate of return goes down, the unfunded liabilities go up. When the unfunded liabilities go up, the pressure on the system gets bigger. The politics get uglier. But the bright side of this may be that the current court case where the unions are demanding that they get a seat at the table and bargain this thing may not have as much weight, meaning the litigants, the union, may not have as much weight, because if the unfunded liability goes up, the pressure on having to do something statutorily goes up with it. You follow that? Gina Raimondo, our state treasurer, will be under the gun to figure these numbers out. And she's probably got two sets of numbers that she's concerned with. A, the pension and how it works out, and B, her polling numbers. She is running for governor, although she hasn't told us that yet. And speaking of running for governor, advising Alan Fung. I think this is kind of funny. The headline yesterday in the Journal, eyeing run for governor, Fung assembles advisors. And the funny line in this whole thing is that is just too much. The Journal writes the following: the Republican mayor announced the creation of his Fung for Governor Exploratory Committee on Tuesday. Listen to this. The advisors will determine if Fung has the experience needed to get Rhode Islanders back to work. That's the dumbest thing. You know, I'm so tired of being jerked around, aren't you? I mean, really. Can we get some truth? Alan, you want to be the governor. Just say you want to be the governor. All you're doing here is loading up a group of 50 names which really are the establishment of the Republican Party. What happens, Alan, if they tell you that you're not smart enough to run for governor? Well, they're not going to do that because they're not advising. You're just stacking names up. And by the way, think hard about it. How's the Republican Party doing in this state right now? You want to be the establishment candidate from the Republican Party without the kind of money that Don Kacheri had? Mistake number one, off to a slow start. What else do we have here? 38 studios, is that what's on my plan? Yes, I think so. Oh, I'm sorry, no, listen, more politics. The Democrats are having trouble picking a new chairman. I find this to be hilarious. There's so much incestuousness going on with the politics of the Democratic Party. Seems every name that comes up to be the volunteer chairman appointed by Gordon Fox, the House Speaker, has got a former relationship or current relationship with a prominent Democrat, and that's kind of a conflict of interest. Like some of the candidates are David Cicilline allies. David Caprio, the former representative from Narragansett, reportedly is odds-on favorite to become the party chairman, but he's got a conflict because his brother, who was the Democratic state treasurer and who's running for treasurer again after a failed gubernatorial run, are you scoring at home, is in the middle of this mix. But if Frank, his brother, decides to run as an independent or a Republican, then maybe David's clear, because they'll be on opposite sides of the fence. We'll see. You know, it's not any better on the Democratic side when it comes to party organizational issues. 38 studios, big oversight committee hearing. Not really. Susan Campbell's got the report.
The Rhode Island House Committee on Oversight is continuing its review of the EDC's $75 million loan guarantee to Curt Schilling's failed video game company. On Wednesday, lawmakers discussed 31 documents, all dated after money started flowing to 38 studios. One of the documents previously obtained by Eyewitness News shows the video game company lost $72 million between August of 2006 and December of 2010.
Certainly some of the documents, I don't know if all of them have been talked about in the press, but this is the first public entity where you're actually having a public hearing on those documents.
We also asked Committee Chair Representative Michael Marcello for his reaction to the story Target 12 investigators broke yesterday, proving the SEC is investigating the 38 studios deal.
Does it surprise me? No. Where it leads, I have no idea. 38
studios filed for bankruptcy in June of 2012. Rhode Island taxpayers are on the hook for more than $90 million.
This oversight committee has the power to subpoena people. All they need is a majority vote. All they need is the Speaker of the House to sign off. but everybody knows that the Speaker of the House is the guy everybody wants to question. We'll talk to our guest about that coming up. And I just wanted to mention that it's a 1-1 series tie with the Durham Bulls. The Paw Sox are home tomorrow night, Saturday, and Sunday. Bring home the cup, fellas. This is the best bargain for your ticket dollar in Southern New England. Great family atmosphere. And now you got a championship they're moving towards. Get out there to McCoy and cheer them on. And hopefully on a good weather weekend, they'll bring it home. Dawes and Hodgson, the Senator, next. Lots of questions on 38 Studios. Stay with us. Senator Dawes and Hodgson is one of the tougher guys on the 38 Studios thing, and the poor guy's got to suffer the wrath of Yorke, because when you step up and end up being one of the tougher guys, all I do is say, get tougher. Of course, all of your comrades, or most of them, are trailing behind. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thanks, Dan. Great to be here.
Nice to have you.
Well, nobody ever said this job would be easy.
Yeah, well, no kidding. House Oversight Committee, look, there's a trickle of paperwork. I'm not going to say it's uninteresting to those who care about the truth of 38 Studios or what happened with Curt Schilling's failed $75 million multi-online gaming project. But the trickle is driving anybody who cares crazy, don't you think?
Sure, and I think both in terms of honest brokering of information to the public, and just as a matter of political expediency, it was in the interest of Rhode Island's leaders to have a full exposition of this early on and put it behind them. But the longer they let it linger and have this very slow burn of information, I think it erodes people's confidence in government, and that doesn't serve anybody's ends. Let's
remind everybody that in 2010, when this vote for a loan guarantee program for $125 million, really stuffed with a $75 million project for Curt Schilling, unwitting to the General Assembly. When that vote occurred, most members didn't know.
I think that's correct. As you know, I was not elected at the time, right. But I believe 99% of the legislators in that chamber, in those chambers, didn't have a full idea of what was coming.
And you believe that because you chat with your fellow members.
Indeed. Both
in the Senate chamber and in the House.
Which is why it's so hard to believe that they're not calling for heads on a stake. Anybody that, if I had been in the legislature, there's no way I would ever allow the person that put me in a position to facilitate such a destruction of public resources to continue in that position of authority. I would demand answers, and not just in behalf of my constituents, but in fact in their own political careers.
So what are they saying? What's the hallway conversation? What's the neuroses? What's the worry? What's the problem?
I'll tell you, the feeling is that we're never going to get anything out of the legislature, and I think there's another feeling that people would just wish it would go away. And that was that's a perception that I received.
People in the legislature say we're never going to get anything out of the legislature? I mean, well, talk about self-fulfilling underperforming
I can't argue
prophecy.
with you. I can't argue with you.
It's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard.
There has been a
well, I'm a legislator, and you can never get anything out of the legislature. What?
There's an acceptance of the existing culture of legislative politics in the state. People have priorities that do mean a great deal to them, and they feel they put their own agenda at risk by standing up to the forces of leadership. And for that reason, I think people are taking what they think is a pragmatic approach to let's focus on other tasks. Now, I don't want to dwell on the negative about Rhode Island's government all the time. I certainly wasn't elected to be a complainer and a naysayer, but I found in my first 2 terms now in office that I've had this scandal of historic proportion dropped on my lap, and a complete unwillingness to engage in a very introspective look about how we got where we are.
All right, before we get to I want to pick up on that and talk about the politics of it as well in our next segment with the Senator. But the Senate had this incredibly cursory oversight exercise. I mean, the House is at least going through some serious motions. On your side, what?
Indeed, and again,
nothing.
I don't understand it. By all accounts, this project came out of the House. The Senate really, both in terms of their duty to the public and their own political self-interest, really should have been the ones who took the lead on providing oversight.
And the chairman of the Oversight Committee actually wrote a missive as if it was a mini novel, Cliff's Notes on, hey, it was a bad time in Rhode Island. It was kind of like a historical footnote essay.
I was extremely disappointed in that correspondence, and frankly, I don't like to say, speak ill of my colleagues, but I'm ashamed of the lack of action on that committee. It's frankly unacceptable. It is not living up to our stated duty to monitor the past, present, and prospective performance of quasi-public agencies. That's squarely where it belonged in the Senate Oversight Committee, and 18 months have passed now without it ever, not once, has it ever been on the Senate Oversight's agenda. What you mentioned in the Finance Committee, that was a brief review of where we stood in spring of 2013 by 3 individuals that weren't even in the EDC at the time.
And like yesterday, as Susan's report indicated, the House Finance Committee met for the second dramatic time. Their paperwork is up to the ceiling. Bottom line is, for them, they could subpoena other records and people. They simply have to vote for it, and the Speaker of the House has got to sign off on it. And everyone jokes over the idea that he's the eventual guy that we want all the answers from, so how is that going to be possible? Well, doggone it, make it happen.
Again, if you look at the mechanics of legislative politics, this is something where the elite leaders of the legislature have to say, we're going to step up and do the tough thing and deliver the decisions that will make this go away.
All right. Well, speaking of doing the tough thing, this guy's a Republican, so I got him out of the phone booth to come up on this program tonight. We'll find out what his party is doing about this. It's an opportunity sitting right in front of them. Stay with us. Back with Senator Dawes and Hodgson, Republican from North Kingstown, and one of the lead town criers on doing the right thing with the 38 Studios investigation. You said something to Tim on Eyewitness News the other night that really kind of caught my attention. Listen to this.
I'm pleased that somebody is looking into this, that an investigation is ongoing as to how this situation was created and the economic harm that was done to Rhode Islanders. There's an incredible sense of disillusionment when I speak to the public about what happened with 38 Studios.
Disillusionment. Incredible word. Expand.
Sure. My proposals for oversight and answers on 38 Studios, when I speak with members of the legislature, people tell me that's ridiculous, that's never going to happen. When I say the same ideas and thoughts to my constituents, to my family, people I encounter, they say that's common sense, it's a no-brainer. And when I tell them, listen, I'm one of the few people up there that thinks that way, they're disappointed because, I think people could live with the destruction of our resources and bad decisions.
Dawson, why aren't they getting angry?
They are.
Well, there's a big difference between disillusionment and anger. Anger would force your comrades to join you to say, we're digging in, we're the ones that were duped, we're gonna redesign the General Assembly to be a place that can't get duped. If people were angry, then your fellow senators and representatives might act differently. So I would say it's as much about you as it is about these guys. Yes?
Sure.
I mean,
I've long seen a disconnect between the job performance of Rhode Island's government and the results at the ballot box. And I don't have an explanation for it. All I can do is build my vision, build a record that supports my vision for an alternative way to lead. Now, you asked what the Republicans are doing about 38 Studios and the public's reaction to it.
No, I didn't.
I thought you mentioned before the start.
I did. Well, you're too good. He's good. Hey, what about the Republicans and what they're doing about this whole thing?
Early last session, the Senate Republicans unanimously introduced a piece of legislation to create a select commission akin to the RISDIC Commission to investigate the failure of publicly funded loan guarantee programs in this state. And it was introduced on a partisan basis because, frankly, we knew that leadership wouldn't support it. That is something that needs to be supported. Seeing the track record of the oversight committees in the legislature, it is time to take this outside of the chambers and put it into the hands of citizens that people will trust.
All good answers, but not enough. Why isn't the Republican Party and its fledgling new management team lining up every Republican elected official at a press conference at the State House, demanding to hear from Gordon Fox as to what the hell he was doing when this scheme was designed? This is in front. You cannot be handed a more silver platter, your party.
Dan, you're right, but I don't think the public responds to spectacles. When we've seen agitation at the State House, we've very seldom seen it turn into legislative momentum. And like it or hate it, change and leadership in the General Assembly over the next year has to come from the majority Democratic Party.
Oh, I'm
it
sorry.
is up to us to put
I didn't
pressure on them.
I didn't realize that the General Assembly was without spectacle. If there was ever an opportunity to make spectacle purposeful, it's now.
Fair enough.
Thank you. Listen, keep up the good work. I mean,
Thanks,
you know, I'm roughing you up because you're the only guy in the arena, but keep the pressure on, and doggone it, at some juncture, don't you think, at the end of the day, we need to hear from the people who made the deal?
I was so relieved to finally hear the members of the House Oversight Committee talking about issuing subpoenas last night. It's absolutely critical that the highly relevant principal actors of the 38 Studios experience, from the very start to the very finish, appear in front of the public and answer questions about how we got here. Even if we don't get our money back, we owe them no less.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dawson Hodgson, Senator from North Kingstown. When we come back, your state of mind. Somebody tells me this ain't pretty. Stay with us. So I've been asking you for feedback, even if it's not comfortable, and my exceptional producer, Nick Blair, said, yeah, deal with this one. So here's an email sent to stateofmind@myRI.com, myRITV.com. Get up off your knees and express a nonpartisan opinion for real. Really? Am I a wallflower? You have a lot to learn. We all do. First, your face is not meant for low-budget cable. Well, people have been telling me I have a face for radio for a long time, and I'm not going to argue that. Let me tell you this. Laura, put my face. This show is not going to succeed on this face. I think we can all agree on that. Can we put that back up? Is there a chance we can? What else? A suggestion, a little makeup on your square head. I didn't know it was square. I know my forehead's getting higher, but... And what's the rest? Get a tie and a jacket? Hey, this is my state of mind. I'm comfortable this way. I think it's a nice shirt. And Hannity and O'Reilly, they got nothing to worry about? I'm not worried about them. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow on State of Mind.